Hi, in this session, we add the health bar to the enemy. Actually, there is one health bar for all of the enemies, and it depends on which one you attack to, and then it shows the value of that particular enemy. And when you get away from that enemy, or if you don't attack to that enemy, the health bar of that enemy would disappear. Okay, now we go to the enemy health. Previously, I think that we have wrote something just to test the game. Now, let's complete that. Okay, let me delete that and then explain it again. So we want that the enemy has the max health and current health, and here we have public void take damage. Mm, we have int dmg, which from the current health we want to get that damage, but as the damage might get below zero, so we use math.clamp or math.max, which we say current health minus damage up to zero. And I say anim.set trigger the hurt animation, and make sure that this name is all the same for all the enemies, because we're going to use this single code for all the other enemies. You might say, okay, where is the health bar? We want to give a central health bar, not individually for each enemy. So we later work on that, and we have to bring a condition. If it is more than zero, then we're allowed to take the damage. Otherwise, the enemy have to die. Let me make a boolean here. Private spool is alive at first it is true, and here I say if current health is more than zero and is alive, then you're allowed to take the damage, and we'll later add the death sounds also, else it has to die. Say enemy death. And here I say private void enemy death is alive is false. And there's to say if is not alive. Oh, what is that? Then return and do not execute the rest of the code. Okay, it becomes like that, and then let's set trigger death. Now let's go to our enemies and work on their animator. So they are prefab, so we go to their prefab, and actually if you change this, even if it's not prefab, because the animator is the same, it would have the effect. So yes, I did it for that, and also for this. Yes, they are done. And now let's go and I think I didn't give them the code, so I say enemy health The max health, let me give it a central one. 100. And for each enemy, we changed that. It was for this and this enemy health, and I give it, for example, 80. Actually, this is a tank. When you give more health, you can decrease the damage amount. You create some balance. So the problem is that I say get component in children because it's not directly on that game object that we gave the code. It was on its child component. And also, as I have added here, so this is not necessary. So here I just say if current health is that, okay, then do this. And also the name was Heat, not Hurt. And previously for testing in the early sessions, I gave that make sure that you only have one health. Okay, now it is working. And as you see, when I hit that, it loses health. Now we have another problem. When an enemy dies, it rises again and fights. So we have to go to enemy AI and say, okay, don't fight if you're dead. And enemy health is get components, enemy health. Here I say if enemy health that is alive, I have to make it public. So where is that? Let me bring it. No, go here. But beside that, okay. Make it public, and then here is alive. Actually, if this is not alive, then return. Oh, it stays in idle. The problem was because of this hit animation. Maybe when I am hitting the enemy, in the middle of that, when he's dying, this animation is also playing and it overrides the death animation. So it is better that I give a cooldown for the hit animation. So first it wouldn't be spammed, and also I give it time to process the information, and if it dies, it shows this animation. So I say private float. Nice. What is that? Hit cooldown. I make, for example, every half a second it can, um, for example, show the hit animation. And I also give it a last hit. If I make hit 0, then it is not. I make it -1, so it is ready at first that I do that. And if you don't, I show you another approach. If you don't want to say, okay, for example, do you remember that we have timer plus equal to time the delta time? So if you don't want to use that, you can directly give it the time. So I say if, so we'll check if this is more than 0, okay, Let me remove this here. And time, the time is more than the heat cooldown plus last hit. Then it is allowed to show this animation. Now I need to update the last hit time. When I say last hit, it's equal to time dot time. So it means that if this is 0.5, then it is okay, it is a lot. But if this is 0.6, it would ignore that. It say no, it is not still allowed. If this is 1, it is allowed. If it is 1.5, it is allowed. But 1.7, no, this is not. It has to be from this number. Something like that. And let's go and check the game. So it perfectly dies. And now we can add a, for example, destroy to that. So it would be destroyed after some seconds. And here I say private void, for example, disable enemy and destroy game object. And it's enough that, for example, I don't want that as soon as it dies. It shows that. I want that the death animation would be completed. I see the dead body, and then this would be showed. Okay, after, for example, 3F. Okay, now let's test it, and don't forget that you give the enemy layer to your enemies. Okay, it hurt and it dies. And it also died and disappeared. Now let's create a code and call it enemy health health bar manager. And now let's go and add this health bar here on the canvas panel. Let's create a panel for the, and I call it panel enemy health. Let me shrink it, and also here press Alt and do that, and I make an image and call it border, something we had done for the player health, and I give it to that, set native size, and then I add an empty game object and try to fit that white one with this as much as I can. I bring it out, and I can, I'll duplicate that and call it fill. And now add an image component and add this fill. And I call it a slider and put both of them there. And for a slider, just add this slider component. And the fill one is this. And make the fill to be this. Press Alt and then press this. And this working this way. So go and make it right to left. So it will be this, but this has kind of moved. Now this works just fine. And remove this into none and to none. Now let's go to our code, which was the health manager. Here you want the reference to the slider, so let's make it public. Public is slider. Oh, slider. Click right and add the UI and a slider. Okay, and now we want the reference to the enemy health. So private enemy health and current enemy, because I want that each of the time when I do something, for example, when I hit the enemy, um, only for that specific enemy health would be inserted inside this slider. Okay, because as you know, we only have one slider, and this slider is active and also shows the value related to the specific enemy that I am, for example, hitting or killing. And at first, I want that the slider is not active, so I say game object that set active false, because the player might just be running and no enemies are there, so there shouldn't be any slider. And I write a function public void update enemy health bar, and I get the enemy health enemy, and if there is an enemy, so enemy is not null, it means that I'm fighting with the enemy, whatever. Then this current enemy would be the enemy, and I should update this slider max value, that max value equals to um, enemy that, let me see if this is public, because we want this. Mm, so I have to make it public. Oh, I remove that public. And also the max health, because I'm gonna get these two values here. Imagine that one enemy has this code. I get that through this and update the slider with those values. Okay, this is max health, and the slider that value is enemy that's current health. And I also want that this slider be active and show me these values. So this is true. Okay, and when there is no enemy, then we have to hide that health bar. So I say hide health bar. So again, it would be deactivated, and the current enemy would be null. And this is optional. If I want to constantly show the value of the health bar according to the enemy health, then I can say it in here. So I write if current enemy is not null and uh, slider that game object, check if it is active. That's self active self, and here we say slider that value equals to current value, current enemy dot current health. So we have this, and we have to connect that to this. So first, let's get this components. Let's say private enemy health bar manager, uh, enemy health manager, and as they are not in the same components, I say find game object of type this. So to search on the first one that is found, bring it here. As we only have one, so it always bring this one. And okay, when it takes damage, the enemy health bar, enemy health manager, um, that's update enemy health bar. I say this. We want to call this, give that specific enemy, okay? So we call it here when it takes damage. And also when the enemy dies, we want that it stops. Hide the health bar. That we want to call this. So hide health bar. Not only when the enemy dies, but for example, when we are fighting with the enemy and we hit that. Okay, now this is active, this slider. But what if we don't want to continue fighting with the enemy? And also he is not dead, so it is not deactivated. And when we go, for example, 1 hour, we are playing the game and still the health bar of that enemy is active. So we have to somehow deactivate that. So we use quarantine. Here I say coroutine, for example, hide health bar, coroutine. And here I make the private I enumerator, and I would say hide health bar delay. For example, I want that after 5 seconds, when I do nothing with the enemy, then it would hide. Mm, with new, you'll return new. Wait for seconds. For example, 5. Then we say enemy health manager dot hide health bar. Now, as the enemy takes damage, okay, and I say start routine, and I give it this value. I'm sorry, this function, and we have something like this. I say why we need that. We want to make sure that it stops after the player died, for example. So we're gonna make that so we stop hiding the coroutine. And so here we say if this health coroutine is not null, then stop coroutine. Which one? Um, it was this. And I also give it to death. Enemy die. So it's better that I move this below. And also Bring it up. Okay. So all of them would be the quarantines are in the same place. Okay. So now let's go and try that. You can make an empty game object and make it the game manager. Um, but okay, let's do that. And I'll call it game manager. And I give this code the health bar manager. And the slider is this. So now it's time that we go and check the game. We have these enemies. But before that, let's remove this ugly white here. Now let's start the game. At first, there should not be any health bar. Yes, as you see, there's no health bar. Until I start attacking the enemy. I hit him. Then I go. Actually, they have the same amount of health, so we don't know if this is updated. Let me change this health to. Oh, that's too much. 50. The shaman would be 200. Okay, or now I go here and this is updated. Now I go here, every one of them has their own, and the health bar is deactivated as I'm not um, attacking to anyone. Now I go there, and it died. So now I have this, and I kill it, and then um, why my health bar uh, magic attack doesn't do anything? Let me check. So the health bar just work as we wanted. Now let's go and see why the projectile doesn't work. So it was here, the player attack projectile. Let's open the code and collision inter. Because I didn't give any damage. So let's quickly do that. Serialized field, private. Um, no, it should be integer. Damage would be, for example, 10. And here, yes, on collision, it should be collision, that game object, that get component, enemy health, that's take damage, damage. And for those enemies that are anterior, that the collider is trigger, we can make another function for anterior into 2D and copy and paste them here. So for now, we don't need that. Now let's go and check the game. Okay, I hit that. Now the projectile works.